Hey guys, what's going on? Steve, I'm back again, and I'm back with another Walking Dead video. So, the topic for today's video is In the Mind of a Villain, Shane from The Walking Dead. Now, the video is by the channel In the Mind of a Villain. I'm not sure what to expect from the video. Maybe going over Shane's motives, thought process, downward spiral, even though we know his motives, Shane loved Lori, Lori loved Rick, and there was the conflict right there. So, yeah, I'm not sure really what to expect from this video, but I am curious to see how it plays out. So, let's check out the video. Here we go.
Hello, friends. In this entry, we'll be taking a look at Shane, the antagonist of the first two seasons of the Walking Dead TV series. Like most effective villains, Shane was a character who believed he was right, that he was the hero of his own story. His viewpoints, while contentious, could be said to have their merit from time to time. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the traits and the thought processes that make for one of the most compelling antagonists of The Walking Dead. Shane is a man who sees himself as someone who can make the hard decisions, a trait that he sees sorely lacking in Rick, which crumbles his faith in the latter's leadership. In Shane's point of view, these hard decisions, while unpleasant, are necessary for the greater good of their survival and well-being. The first of such decisions would be his choice to leave an unconscious Rick behind in the hospital. Now, this is a tough situation, and it's made even harder by the fact that their friendship makes them as close as brothers. Shane is clearly conflicted over this decision, but time is running out as the military and the walkers were sweeping up the area.
I mean, you can't really fault, Shane for this one here. I mean, yes, Shane is a trained cop and stuff like that, but, not trained for a situation like this, not trained for zombies, and then seeing Rick, in a hospital and, all these different machines and stuff like that attached to him, and, obviously, I don't know what the hell any of this stuff is, do I unplug this? Do I pull that out? Do I hit this button? What do I do? Because I don't know what any of these machines do. It could just be an IV drip, or this thing could be like pumping his heart. I don't know. One wrong button push and oops. So I mean, and of course with the military coming in, walkers coming in, what do I do? What do I do? I mean, so can't really blame, Shane on that, so I can't really fault him for that.
Contrary to what he tells Lori, it's unlikely that Shane actually believes that Rick was dead. Just a few seconds ago, he would have seen that Rick's vitals were still present on the monitors, and although he puts his head on his chest to check for a heartbeat, as he recounts, it's possible that he couldn't detect one in the midst of all the gunfire. It's also worthwhile to note that after he exits Rick's room, he deliberately makes it a point to slam the door shut and blocks the door with a bed.
So he did make,
Such action would not be needed if he truly believed his longtime friend was gone. More likely, Shane was under the assumption that he wouldn't be able to make it out of the military-swarmed building if he had to drag along his unconscious friend.
That's true. That's all dead weight.
He already had a low chance of survival to begin with. Maybe he was thinking,
I mean, Rick would have just been completely dead weight.
Casualty to the list. So right from the beginning, we see a trait of Shane's, one that will recur throughout the series. His ability to write others off, some more quickly than others, of course, and that if it comes down to him and another person, Shane will likely prioritize his own well-being first.
Of course he will.
Of course, self-preservation is not a malicious goal in itself, but Shane could be said to be at fault here for his lack of trying. He could have attempted to carry Rick out of the hospital for a time, and if things truly went south, his conscience would be clear if he had no choice but to abandon him.
Yeah.
Instead, in his justification to Lori for leaving her husband behind,
I mean, Shane wouldn't have gotten too far.
Of thinking that Rick was dead, and that he was focused on getting her and Coral out of Atlanta. But among all of Shane's decisions, we can give him the benefit of doubt here, as perhaps he did what he thought best in the heat of the moment,
Right.
given his cautious and calculating nature.
I mean, can you just imagine carrying like
Likewise,
a 200
this
pound dead
calculative
weight man?
nature
Just,
is also seen when
you
he
know,
expresses his disagreement with Rick about going back into the city to save Merle, given that it puts the camp at risk, and also because Merle isn't exactly someone you want back at camp. Throughout Shane's time at the camp, we see several of his leadership qualities, one of which is the enforcement of the rules needed to keep them alive. But it's here
yeah.
we also see another side of Shane, his propensity for anger and his tendency to use violence.
Yeah.
When Ed breaks one of the rules by burning a stronger fire which would attract the walkers, Shane proceeds to put him in his place. It's implied that Shane has used the threat of force in the past by Ed's challenge to him to pull it out, presumably referring to his gun. Sometime later, when Ed appears to be on the verge of abusing his wife again, Shane comes in and brutally beats him within an inch of his life. Ed is clearly in the wrong here and needs to be stopped, but carrying on the cycle of violence would just make Ed more prone to abusing his wife again. Besides, Shane is acting on a whim here, venting out the resentment from Lori's accusation of him lying about Rick. Interestingly, the series would later show alternative means to resolving these two conflicts. Regarding the campfire attracting walkers, an idea was eventually raised to build rocks around the campfire so that they could burn more wood without the risk of being seen.
I forgot about that.
And instead of pummeling Ed to a pulp, Shane could have restrained Ed instead, just like how he restrained Jim when he displayed some disturbing behavior.
Right.
Violence may sometimes be the answer,
But not
but as
always.
we can see, there are other amiable means to resolve conflict. Shane's shortcoming is that he tends to see solutions from a binary perspective, where it's only either this or that. And unfortunately, one of those two choices would usually involve use of force.
Yeah.
But perhaps Shane's hot-headedness comes from his protective nature. He still views Lori and Coral as his surrogate family, and he misses the role of the husband and father that he used to play. In his defense, he appears to make a good father figure from his interactions with Coral. As for Lori, Shane appears to have a promiscuous past, as seen from his conversations with Rick.
Yeah, I
He's had
did.
multiple relationships, all of which we can assume didn't turn out well. There is also the possibility that he already had his eye on Lori even before the outbreak. In Rick's
I bet.
absence, he had a real romantic relationship, and after getting a taste of it, he cannot let it go, although he certainly should. However, things escalate when Shane reaches the conclusion that Rick is not fit to protect his family. This overprotectiveness, combined with his jealousy over his surrogate family, accounts for much of Shane's evil.
Yeah.
Up till this point, Shane could be labeled a violent man,
Right.
but not necessarily a malicious one. We get a glimpse of his moral descent before the group's trip to the CDC. Shane is opposed to the idea, and when Rick tells him that he would think differently if Lori and Coral were his family, Shane becomes enraged by the insinuation that he doesn't care for them, leading to the moment where he points his shotgun at Rick and has him in his sights. Fortunately, he
That was
decides
there.
against killing his friend,
Wow.
but not before a stunned Dave catches him in the act. Later, at the CDC, Shane's jealousy would result in another incriminating act, forcing himself on Lori in a drunken stupor. Despite all this, things appear to be calm, and Shane has wisely decided that the best outcome for everyone
Was to
would be
leave.
his quiet departure from the group, with him flying solo. Unfortunately, a series of events happen that prevent his escape from villainy.
Yeah.
The first being the accidental shooting of Coral by Otis. This
Yep.
subsequently leads to a pivotal event in Shane's character, the sacrificing of Otis to save himself.
And him
Coincidentally,
offering to
it's
go
another
and get the
example of
medical
Shane's
supplies.
tendency to write people off to save himself. Let's look at the situation a bit. Shane was the one with the injured ankle, and at one point Otis had to support him to keep moving. The walkers were catching up, and both of them were facing imminent death. Now, granted, Shane initially did suggest to Otis that he be the one to be left behind, to which Otis refused, but eventually Shane decided that his life was of more importance than Otis's. We
Yeah.
don't know exactly what went on in Shane's mind, but it's suggestible that he must have thought that having just one person die is better than both of them dying. If both of them die,
Then you're
Coral
screwed.
dies as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if Shane were the one to die, then there would be no one to ensure Lori and Coral's survival in the future. Besides, it was Otis's fault that they were
Oh.
here in the first place.
Oh, didn't
That's
think of
not
that.
to say that Shane's life is more valuable than Otis's, and certainly not to say that what Shane did was right.
No.
If Otis survived, he could also pass along the medical equipment to save Coral just as much as Shane.
Mm-hmm.
The honorable thing for Shane to do would be to let Otis escape instead, since he was the slower one. Perhaps if Shane had just let things take their course, Otis would eventually have no choice but to run ahead of him. Sacrificing Otis was definitely dishonorable,
Right.
but in some small measure, it's somewhat offset by Shane's offer to be the one left behind initially. But overall, this one's a tough situation, with probably differing views on this, and I'd like to hear any of your thoughts on this in the comments. It's easy to take the moral high ground and wish we wouldn't do what Shane did, but in the heat of the moment, there is a possibility, however small, that our actual actions might deviate from our intentions,
Right.
especially given the stakes and the urgency of the situation. For Shane, self-preservation has taken precedence again. As he recounts the Otis incident with Andrea, he describes it as turning off a switch, the one that makes him susceptible to fear and sympathy. In other words, don't think, just act. But while that kind of thinking may result in a fast decision, it may not always be a morally upright one.
It might
In
not be the
Shane's
good one.
words, somebody's going to die, and you'd better hope that you're the one who's making that decision. Shane did make a decision, and the death of Otis left a black mark on his soul, one that reflects in the look he gives himself in the mirror afterwards.
Oh
As
yeah.
if he was coming to
That was-
terms
that was
with
an
accepting
insane
who
look.
he has become. The key difference between Shane and Rick is that Shane has adapted to the new world much faster than anyone in the group.
Right.
In one of their
Rick hasn't yet.
conversations, Rick brings up several happy memories from the past. Shane plays along for a while, but then he gradually sobers up, telling Rick that his nostalgia keeps him from reality. And in this new reality, sometimes the hard choices have to be made, a fact which he repeatedly brings up throughout. Shane's tendency to write people off is seen again in the search for Sophia, who has gone missing after an encounter with the Walkers. From a logical point of view, Shane's suggestion to call off the search does have some merit, as they are risking more lives for the slim chance, if any,
True.
of finding
To
someone
save her.
who has already been missing for days. If he were a certain space-based character, he might suggest that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. However, as Lori tells him, sometimes cutting their losses is just taking the easy way out. One can also understand why Rick and the rest would want to continue the search for Sophia,
Because it's
mainly
the right thing to
because of an
do.
emotional attachment to her.
Mhm.
If it had been Coral who had gone missing,
Right.
Shane would no doubt have continued looking for a longer period.
Oh yeah.
As we saw earlier with Jim from season 1, Shane was reluctant to leave him behind, so there naturally is an element of how close he is with the person in question.
So it's very.
Regardless, Shane does.
So it would be very interesting to see if, on that night in season 2, Shane killed Rick and Shane took over. That, God, even that look. Yeah, it would definitely be interesting to see Shane as like a leader in that role, and like, if like depending on like who you are, like, oh well, we tried looking for you for like a day or two, and well, couldn't find you. Oh, but I like you, so I'll keep looking for you. Oh, I don't really care for you. I'm just gonna leave you behind. Oh, I kind of like you. Are you sure you want to be left behind and stuff like that? Like, are you sure you want to do this, Jim? Are you sure you want us to leave you here? So, better be on Shane's good side, you know, if he was in charge and, you know, definitely buddy buddy.
Have a valid point here, and even more so for the next point of conflict.
Daly he would have left behind.
Herschel's collection of walkers in his barn. This one's a no-brainer. They posed a possible threat, and it was absolutely logical to take them out. Shane was right in his intentions, but as Andrea points out, his presentation or the execution of his intentions leaves much to be desired.
Right.
All that.
I mean, it was the wrong and right thing to do. Yes, the walkers in the barn posed a threat. But, I mean, they've been in that barn as long as the group has been there, and there's been no problems at all. But if he hadn't have done what he did, I would never have found Sophia in the barn. So, you know, like Andrea said, you know, the way you presented it, instead of just running up and, you know, this is it, we gotta do this, we gotta fight now, and, you know, just busting open the thing. Yeah, not you know, not the best way to present that to everybody, you know. So
Shane becomes increasingly disillusioned with Rick's leadership, and it's made worse by the fact that Shane is proven right time and time again. But despite this, Shane has been remarkably patient throughout, and even backs Rick up when his decisions don't always pan out. Eventually, the figurative straw that broke the camel's back would come in the debate over Randall, a member of another group who could come back to harm them.
Mm-hmm.
Shane would rather have him executed than released, but Rick and some of the others disagree with the notion of taking another man's life. Personally, perhaps the best outcome would be to just keep him prisoner. Killing him would be wrong, but releasing him is just as bad, if not worse.
Because you don't know, you know, is he going to go off and get whoever he was with and bring them back and kill the group and take their stuff, or leave and he goes somewhere else and, you know, doesn't go back to them. You know, you don't really know, and then you don't want to make the wrong choice, you know. All right, yeah, he says he's going to go and leave those guys behind. Yeah, all right, let him go, and oops, he lied. And now, you know, here comes all those guys, and, you know, I don't know.
Food was scarce, but the guy can starve for a while, and it sure beats being executed or being left to fend for himself out in the open. Besides, they still have some time to figure out the food situation before winter arrives. Shane does have a point again, as releasing him would only put their own group in danger.
Right.
Where he falters is that he takes matters into his own hands again, this time quite literally. Despite his lack of faith in Rick's leadership, Shane was still relatively in control. He could still leave the group and fly solo as he previously intended.
Yeah,
but
he could have.
Perhaps his concern over the safety of Laurie and Coral changed his mind and kept him staying. The final unlocking of his villainy comes in the form of Laurie's reconciliation with him, and by suggesting that the baby could be his. That's not to say that Laurie is at fault, as ultimately Shane is responsible for his actions, although telling him that the baby could be his was a foolish thing to do, which no good can come out of.
No, because now he's going to stick around, and
Laurie's hostile attitude toward him was the only thing keeping his jealousy contained.
Yeah.
With Laurie on his side now, his jealousy consumes him, and he crosses over from being morally questionable to committing a full-blown, irredeemable act.
Yep.
The attempted murder of Rick.
So it's also like
that
Laurie's
he could take
fault
his
too.
Place as husband and father. There is no excuse for this, although Shane emphatically justifies himself with the fact that his wife.
So
and
Laurie's
son
kind of at
are
fault
in
too. She was
safer
playing
hands
both
with
sides.
him. And it's worth noting that this attempt on Rick's life is made even more heinous by the fact that Rick just saved him a few days ago when he was trapped in the bus with the walkers.
And he could have left him behind.
At the end, Shane was a villain, but it's worthwhile to note that his ability to make hard choices would soon prove to become a necessity for surviving in a post-apocalyptic world.
Right.
Rick would later go on to adopt some of these traits himself, as seen with his dictatorship-like style of leadership, and when
Yeah,
he
he's kind of
attempts to
adopted a little
overthrow
bit
the
of
town
everything from each villain.
Alexandria later. In fact, if future Rick and Shane had met,
Oh.
chances are they would get along quite well. Of course,
Yeah,
if
probably.
the issue with Laurie has been settled. But an important difference remains between Rick and Shane, and that is that Rick maintains his sense of morality. He would never kill someone out of selfish jealousy, and even go so far as to show mercy to his enemies, as seen when he spares Negan and imprisons him instead. Shane was just the first to adapt to a harsh world where sacrifices are necessary, which makes for most of the friction between him and the group, and makes for him to be remembered as one of the most compelling villains of The Walking Dead. So what do you think of Shane, folks? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and take care.
Okay, so there we go. That was actually a really good video. I like this. I did see he does have a couple other videos. I think one of the governor and Negan. So I think I'm definitely gonna have to check out those videos too. But this was actually really good, and yeah, definitely really spot on. Shane was a very complex character. He did make hard decisions, sometimes not always the best ones, not always the right ones. He had his strengths, he had his weaknesses. Yeah, he was just a overall, really, really good villain. I think had, although I don't know how things would have played out, if Rick and Shane met later on down the road, and with everything that happened to Laurie and then Judith and stuff like that, I still don't think they would have gotten along, because it's your fault Laurie's dead. Judith is my child. And I don't think I would have. I don't think even if they met later on, they would have, really gotten along. I think things would have, definitely gotten worse, especially, like I said, with the death of Laurie, and then Shane saying that Judith is my child, and Rick being like, nope, Judith is mine, not yours. And yeah, they definitely would have clashed and stuff like that. Just, Rick probably just would be, more savage than he is now. And I don't know, probably wouldn't have hesitated to just kill him, just feel like, yeah, no. But yeah, that was a really good video, learning, deeper thought, into Shane, and how he would just act in violence in some ways, other ways not so much, like leaving Jim behind, and beating the shit out of Ed. Although I guess Ed was being violent, he was hitting Carol. Jim was just acting loopy, he was just acting weird. So I mean, still not right, but one is acting violent, Ed, hit Carol, and Shane beat the shit out of Ed. Jim was just acting, loopy and stuff like that, but he wasn't violent towards anyone. He wasn't hurting anyone, he wasn't attacking anyone or anything like that. So I mean, which is why, Jim was just, tied up, because he wasn't, he wasn't being violent, he wasn't attacking anyone. But yeah, I don't know if Shane ever just became leader of the group and stuff like that. I don't know who would be saved and stuff like that. I think obviously he'd do anything for Laurie and Carl. But like if everybody else and stuff, I don't know. Like, the governor, takes Glenn and Maggie and stuff like that. Would he? Would he have gone after them and stuff like that? And well, me and Glenn didn't get along that well, so I saw their defenses. They're pretty well fortified and stuff like that. Nothing we can do. So I don't know what would happen with Shane being leader of the group and stuff like that. Would he have saved them? What about Daryl and stuff like that? When Daryl found Merle, if he found Merle again, because maybe they didn't go to the governor's place and stuff like that, and didn't if Shane didn't go and save Maggie and Glenn, and just left them there, Daryl would never have found out, hey, Merle's this governor's like right hand lieutenant dude or something like that. So Daryl might have not found Merle and left with him and then came back. Or if he did go and find him, did go after Glenn and Maggie and find out, hey, Merle is like this governor's like lieutenant and stuff, and Daryl goes and finds Merle and stuff like that, would, both of them once again leave, but would, Daryl have come back? It's like, Shane's all, me and Shane, we didn't really get along. We didn't talk that much. We don't have that connection, like Rick and, like, hey, what was it, like that speech he gave to him, I think right after he got Glenn and Maggie out and stuff like that. Daryl was going to leave, and he's like, hey, you can't leave. Like, I need you, we need you. We started this whole mess with the governor and stuff. We need you, and I think that was like the thing that made, Daryl eventually go back was, hey, Merle, you left and stuff like that. I got people back here at the prison who they need me, But if Shane was in charge, he probably wouldn't have said something like that, and Daryl would be like, well, they don't really need me. I never really got along with Shane or anything like that, so, well, let's go, and Daryl and Merle just might have left and never came back if Shane was in charge. I don't know, I'm just guessing. It's a very interesting what-if scenario. But, yeah, that was a really good video. I'm definitely going to have to check out the other ones about the governor and Negan. That'll be very cool to cover those. But yeah, overall, awesome video. But let me know, what did you guys think of the video? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What do you think about everything gone over about Shane and stuff? Do you agree, disagree? What do you think would have happened if, Shane was the leader? Do you think he would have helped certain people, let other people go? Maybe like the people he was close to and friendly with. Like him and Andrea got close, like if she was taken or something like that, would he have gone after her and just been like, whatever, she's on her own? Let me know. So leave me all your thoughts and comments down below. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button, that'd be awesome. Remember, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media, links in the description box below. Come and join me over on Discord. We can talk more Walking Dead and stuff like that. I'm waiting to get, hopefully, some more filming pictures, and I'll post them on there so we can see some, whatever they're filming and stuff like that. And yeah, other than that, yeah, just stick around. More videos are on the way, and I will see you guys next time.